I've shared my screen now. All right, so we're interested via the slides, which we're looking at. We're only interested in one thing. We're interested in knowing وشو هما concepts that we went through yesterday that we will be looking at ولا we will encounter today. وش راح نديرو اليوم هي we're going to start working with Next.js as the announcement here on Discord said, to build a front-end application. Why a front-end application? Because in order to have a backend, at least with Next.js, Next.js isn't used to build backends dedicated يعني REST APIs. The backends for in Next.js are meant to serve a front end. Yeah. So you have a front end that needs it needs to fetch data, it needs to post data, uh, things like that. Here, the Next.js special thing about it is it allows you انه في بلاصة ما تفتح سيرفر جديد وتخدم كشمة لونجاج جديد things like that, you can immediately use Next.js using some built-in functionalities اللي يخلوها very easy, very fast to get what you want done. We'll be seeing some of that today. We'll be seeing more of it in the future, of course. Today, we'll focus on the front end by necessity, parce que we want to get familiar working with Next.js. Parce que it's not very similar to React. In terms of syntax, building, writing components, all of that, it is familiar. In terms of, for example, project structure, how you organize your files, there are some very important differences that we need to understand. In terms also of the technology, you will encounter 80% of the time with Next.js, كيما TypeScript, for example, كيما CSS let's say SAS modules as well. These are synonymous with Next.js, so you will always encounter them. So we should cover them right now. Because if I teach you Next.js without teaching you these things, I'm basically not teaching you Next.js. Right, so let's go through our slides real quick. I will I will point out الحوايج اللي يهمونا. So you don't need to read وش مكتوب. I'm going to also post them. I forgot about that. I'll post them so you can see them at your leisure. Okay. First thing we want to notice here, this point, static and dynamic websites. Keep that in mind. We'll be first building something اللي هو static, بعدها immediately very quickly turn it into turn it dynamic, as well as client-side rendering. We'll be working with that. We will also be working with this server-side rendering. So we'll be working with both. So basically hybrid. We'll be doing hybrid. We will have both next to each other. Something that might seem for people who never used Next.js presque soit impossible, soit magical. We'll be seeing that in action, which will be hopefully very simple. Right, so next here we don't really care. We went through the slide. We built, we showed how we would achieve some of the things that we mentioned. For example, a static website وبعدين نرجعه dynamic. We showed how we would do that using vanilla Node.js, vanilla JavaScript, HTML, CSS. It's very complicated compared to the approach that we're going to use. It's very complicated. Still, it's not that complicated. There is an easier way. When you're building products that matter, big products, the easier way wins you a lot of time. If you can win a few hours coding one page for a website that has hundreds of pages, you'll be saving a month of development or something like that. Right. We don't need this slide. We discussed how, well, we made a simple website. Then we discussed how you need a server for it اللي هو separately يسربي لك هذاك ال pages. With Next.js, with many of these frameworks كما React, server is built into the framework itself. So you don't need an external زعما backend server to serve هذاك ال HTML pages. We discussed the rise of these frameworks like React to Angular or Vue due to the rise of more and more complex web apps, يعني complex needs. We became apps started to communicate a lot more in data, back and forth all the time. User interactions became very heavy. ما ولاوش برك شغل just navigation ولاو also manipulating things, drawing, writing, commenting, stuff like that. We discussed main points ولا شغل main offerings of these frameworks اللي هما React, Angular, Vue.js and the like. We discussed that they are purely ولا شغل solely only client side rendered. والمشكل مع هذه الحاجة سي que it gives you heavy initial load. We discussed this point was kind of complicated. We discussed they need rich APIs. Yes, I think this is the correct way to say it. They need rich APIs باش they achieve their functionality. باسكو وحدهم ما يقدروش يكومينيكيو ديريكتومون مع الباز دوني. So you're going to need to build an API for everything. عندك زعما posts you want to get, build an API for that. API endpoint يعني so yeah API. You have comments, you have likes, etc. You need an endpoint. So what you end up with now when we got to this balance of effort, when you want to build some kind of product, let's say you're building it with React, the amount of time you're spending في building the user interface اللي هي شغل arguably مش arguably certainly the most important كيما for كيف يسموها انستغرام ولا فيسبوك و websites like that. Naturally, we don't care what's happening behind the scenes. We don't care about all this complex logic being done with these data, all of that. What we care about here, user interface. We want it slick. We want it smooth. We want to get what we want in human posts, or stories, etc. So, Abdu, I can mute him now. So nice. I am powerful. Okay, so in terms of balance of time, you will be spending 30% of your time في UI و 70% of your time building هذوك ال API endpoints, building also state هذيك كيفاش يعيطوا لها state management تسمى الابلكيشن تاعك في الكلاينت سايد يعني هذا الرياكت application it will need to fetch data بعد it will need to store it و manage it يعني update it كي تتبدل باسكو شغل let's say number of likes keeps changing تسمى your application will need to keep asking for the server تقول له اوكي ودوكا شحال لحقوا اللايكس ودوكا شحال لحقوا اللايكس ونفس الشيء مع posts وشغل every single thing هكذا تسمى you can see how المانجمنت تاع هذه الحاجة becomes شغل huge enormous. So you'll be spending much more time data side than you will want to, right? When you're talking about time. All of this, احنا what we care about, like I said في ال client side هي we want website اللي interactive. وش معناتها؟ معناتها I can do things in it so it will respond to what I do. كي نرسم حاجة هذيك الحاجة تترسم كي نكليكي par exemple على نورمالمون كنت تشوفوا فيها هكذا zoom in. I can't. If I click this little button, it expands this menu. كي نكليك على هذا button, it closes it. So this type of interactive experience, right? Because it makes our applications rich. We feel believe we have control over many things. Many things. It gives us functionality that we need for application, for modern applications. Right? We also want it dynamic, meaning نحوسوا الكونتوني اللي يكون فيها يكون ديما up to date, ديما personalized for us, ديما I think, yeah, that's it. Personalized, up to date. Uh, that basically explains it. Performant as well, meaning مانيش حابين نستناو شغل شغل an eternity. وش معناتها eternity when we're talking about websites? We don't want to wait 5 seconds, even like 5 seconds, for our posts to reload or to refresh. We don't want either to wait for the whole application to load. For example, if I refresh this, I'm expecting it to refresh quickly. Uh, yeah, that was relatively quick for a heavy application اللي هي شغل slides. If it took longer شغل نبقى غير نشوف loading sign هكذا, I would get sick. I would just go use Excel sheets or Excel PowerPoint, for example. Right? So Luke and Google does not care about performance. They will use me as a client, uh, as a paying client, paying with my data or many other things. Uh, okay, so we're talking about performance. So basically, the way we improve this, we mentioned, is that we want each of those points أمليوريوهم. Yeah, we want the same good developer experience. We want to, this is an important point, واللي راح نشوفها immediately في Next.js. We want to be able to do queries للdatabase ديريكتومون من الكود تاعنا. ما نسحقوش نكريو باك اند repository ولا باك اند سيرفر هكذا. Using Node.js ولا using يعني Express, Next.js, whatever framework we want. We want immediately راني نكتب في React code ولا JSX يعني React code, yeah. I want to be able to do a MongoDB query, par exemple, ولا Postgres, MySQL query directement هكذا. بعدين نجيب الريزلت immediately ونحطها في الخانة تاعها ولا في البوزيشن تاعها اللي نحتاجها. Right? Another thing that we want to improve هذيك performance thing, شغل solution to fix that هي في بلاصة ما نمدوا للكلاينت a big chunk of JavaScript هكذا اللي يلوديها. We give him just a HTML اللي راهو ديجا واجد فيه البوستس وفيها everything ready. We give him CSS, we give him JavaScript, right? تسمى it loads much quicker. When it loads يعني كي يلحقوا هذاك he downloads it, he will have um, what's it called? I will be using. Okay, I'm lucky to have had mute power. Some people forget their. I think they forget their mics active. If you want to ask a question, let me know يعني في chat. Uh, Otherwise, it feels like you just forgot your mic on. All right. So we're talking about server-side rendering. We'll talk about it more in depth. Just understand it, really, it's a way to improve performance. Just make things load quickly. Right. Make the framework a full stack framework. هذه extra which I mentioned before. لو كان نقدروا في بلاصة ما نكريو back end server using another framework. لو كان immediately نقدروا في هذاك الفريم اللي هنا في الكات تاعنا Next.js نكريو API routes للابليكيشن تاعنا. Wouldn't that be great? Well, it turns out باللي Next.js solves all of these issues who makes all of these improvements, right? Then we cover the things that it does. We don't care about that for now. Let's just skip. We gave instructions on how to install it. They are in the Discord channel for challenges, so the more detailed explanation with links with everything. And well, not planning of September, planning of J Sahara. Planning of J Sahara. Today we're on day two of the sessions. Yesterday was a challenge day. It was a simple challenge, so there isn't much to talk about when it comes to it. I think really only if you had problems doing it, and installing the necessary software, only then can we. Is there anything to talk about? So I'm just going to skip it for today. just for the sake of time. Uh, and there will be a challenge after this course or this session. Uh, Now let's get started immediately. Where we want to be is we want to get to code, right? So the first thing that we want to do here after installing all the things I talked about, right? So let's go to challenge text here. Uh, well, it's hard to see. Uh, we talked about, yani, in order to use Next.js, you need the code editor, of course, VS Code preferred. You also need Node.js or NPM, because after all, it is a framework built on top of Node or on top of React. You also need Git. This is more for the purpose of making Zama web app sharing it with others. We will be also uh, deploying it. We will make it available on the internet. We also care about Vercel. Uh, I think my screen's frozen, right? Uh, yep. I'm going to turn off my streaming and turn it back on again. Okay, it's back again. Right, so Node.js npm git in order to push to GitHub. From GitHub, we will be deploying using Vercel. Uh, the other instructions are more about the event itself. So let's get started with our command line because using it, we're going to be starting our um, web app. What we will be building, I can show you. It's just a simple web app. بس كل purpose تاعنا دوكا is to understand the philosophy behind it. So it's not very stylized. It's not very functional even. ماشي functional. Doesn't have many functionalities. How do we will build when we get to the backend parts, يعني backend sessions. Uh, but for now, we have a web app that gives us a random book each time. Each time that we refresh, it gives us a random book with the name, with the title, name of the author, like small, a short review. And we have this button. Like I said, when we refresh, we get a new book. But this button, a special button, will give us a new book, almost the same functionality that you would get when making a REST request, REST API request, without actually making the request, right? So you don't need any code هذاك البارت اللي قلت لكم باللي you will spend a lot of time building. You won't be working on it. So what your concern what your time can go into هي building the UI and this functionality اللي React allows you to have راح تسمح لك انك تكري شغل functional dynamic websites yeah, without REST requests using server-side rendering basically. So clicking this button will always get us a new book without making, if we look at the network, here, we're not making, as you can see, this is just some more, what's it called? Uh, JavaScript, basically. It's asking for some JavaScript from the backend. It's like asking for a new page, may not really a new page, because we're not refreshing. If you look at this counter here, every time that I click, it gets updated by one. So هذه الcombination تاع not making REST requests plus having a web app اللي doesn't need to refresh to get content is impossible in React, basically. It's impossible. Me with Next.js, it's the norm. So it's normal. You don't need to think about it in order to achieve this outcome. You do need to understand it first, which is what we will be doing. So the first step for us, yeah, we are going to start looking into how to start our Next.js projects. If we go to the Next.js documentation, because I want us to get familiar with the documentation, we will find this section اللي هي installation. Now we care about automatic installation parce que we're lazy. Or not really we're lazy. Being lazy is good in this case. We are lazy, so we want the automatic installator that does all the necessary things for us. So let's follow their lead. They said use npx, create next app, and then use at latest. By default, it should be so Hisham, like when it comes to doing the same and getting the same functionality for React, wait, it is possible. I'm not saying the functionality is not possible. هذه تاع refreshing page. The special thing about هنا في Next.js is that it's not making ماهوش يدير REST request. It's not fetching the data the same way that React does. React fetches شغل يدير REST request. تسمى لو كان نشوفوا الريكوستس اللي جابهم الريسبونسز تاعهم here. Okay, let's try again. Okay, we got a new book. بصح وش كومينيكا I can zoom in. The payload ولا the response that we got is just some new CSS. Yeah, so just some new CSS. I'm not even sure how it got the new CSS new image because it needs the image to showcase it. هذوما البوكس وهذا التايتلز والاخرين ما همش stored عندي انا في اللوكال واسمه في اللوكال application هنايا. So it's always asking from it for it. بصح I'm not making a fetch request. I'm not using Axios. I'm not ما عنديش back end route اللي I can call to get the data. So it's all built into React component. So I just wrote Next.js code. Only wrote React code, you know. Thanks to the ability to do server-side rendering, راح نولي نقدر achieve this functionality. We'll see how. So it's impossible. It's very difficult to explain if you don't if you're not familiar with it. If you don't look at the code. So the fastest way is to just look at the code. So let's go to the directory where I do my coding. They told us to do npx create next app. And now I'm using something a bit different than npx npm اللي هو pnpm. الديفيرونس الوحيد برك هذا pnpm يمد لك some optimizations so you don't need to download packages every time. So I will be using it. Mais for everyone else it's the same. npm و pnpm هذا it's the same. الفرق بين npm و npx npm you use it to download data from you use it to download the packages every time for every new project. معناتها let's say عندك project A اللي خدمت فيه برياكت. When you install React you are going to be downloading library تاع React بالdependencies تاعها. It will come up to a few megabytes. I don't know how many. Let's say 50 to 100 megabytes. When you create a new project, it will download هذاك if you use React again, it will download React again. تسمح يولي عندك extra storage use. PNPM removes that. Right? والفرق بين NPM و NPX كي تيليشارجي هذوك الباكجز ما يخلي it doesn't keep it في البي سي تاعك. تسمى يتيليشارجيهم يخدم بيهم بعدين يمحيهم. تسمى انا في هذه create next app مانيش حاب نخليها في البي سي تاعي. I don't need it. So I just call it using pnpx ولا npx. I click enter. نقدر ندير at latest. It's basically the same without ولا with. It will default use latest. What is your project named? I will call it book review. Would you like to use TypeScript? Most projects, يعني most Next.js projects use TypeScript. You don't need to learn anything new. يعني if you only know JavaScript or you choose to use TypeScript, it will work. يعني if you write JavaScript, it will basically work every time. Right. ESLint. ESLint is a way to assure that you follow certain standards. For example, either of JavaScript, it's not necessary, يعني it's not required by the compiler soi-disant. Mais point virgule, if you want to always write point virgule, you can set up شغل ESLint تقول له باللي always remind me باللي باش نكتب point virgule في لافان تاع JavaScript lines تاعي. It will do that for you. If you want to tell it باللي you always want to, for example, functions to always follow كشما certain naming format كيما camel case ولا وش يسموهم الآخرين I forgot them. It will you can tell ESLint so set an ESLint rule it will follow it. Yeah, Pascal case. Ouais. So ESLint just helps with انك تكتب كود لي unified. It's always the same. Tailwind CSS is a framework for styling with CSS. Would you like to use SRC directory? Yes, I like it because it organizes code. This is just شغل يحط لك الكود تاعك داخل SRC باش ما يكونش في السطح في السيرفس ولا الروت folder. So I will answer yes. Would you like to use app router? App router هو latest it was released with the latest release with a version تاع Next.js. It allows for many more better, in my opinion, functionalities. It's the direction that Next.js is going. For all new projects, you should use app router. إذا عندك an old project, then you might use the old router اللي هو اسمه pages router. For us, we want, yes, we're going to always be using app router. Import alias, we don't really care about. I will just answer yes because it's helpful. في بلاصة ما تكتب ولا خلي ما نشرحوهاش. It's not necessary. We won't be using it. Select import alias. I don't care. نحتاج default. It's installing. It's downloading all the packages and dependencies, and it's done. I don't care about the warning. Everything looks fine. Install dependencies. Done. The warning is just a small issue. يحوس على version هذا 18.2 لقى 18.0. I don't care because it's a minor release. It doesn't break the functionality. So I will skip it for now. I should probably update me. I'll skip it for now. What did we call the app? We called it book review. Okay, so now we have entered the code at last. Okay, so let's talk about structure to our Next.js project. Finally. So inside the Next.js project by default راح يجوا هذو اللي في شيء. هذو اللي في شيء كل واحد فيهم configures a certain thing. tsconfig it configures the rules تاع TypeScript. Right? We don't need to get into it in depth because we're not learning TypeScript. Yeah, it's the rules for TypeScript. README is just a README. It describes your project وكيفاش تخدم بيه. You should probably change it for your own project, update it, etc., etc. PNPM log we don't care about. I don't think it's good. I don't want to bombard you with information. So when it comes to things like PNPM log, unless someone has really wants to know, I'm going to be skipping over them. Package.json describes your project. It describes a few things about your project, mainly scripts that you can run to في command line, which you should get familiar with. If you don't use a command line, you should start using it. هي تكتب يعني what you want الcommands. مش تبان hacker. That's one benefit. So scripts, it gives you scripts that are available for package.json. It also gives you dependencies. Dependencies هما packages that you have installed on your project. For example, احنا عندنا هنا, which is this is interesting to see. باللي المين dependencies تاع Next.js هما React و React DOM اللي هما basically the two main packages تاع React تاع vanilla React, let's say. Next, that's the only extra dependencies that it installs. هذو dev dependencies, they are mainly used for you as a developer. They improve your experience. كيما TypeScript يمد لك types. JavaScript is not typed. ما فيهاش types. كي تجي تحب تكري variable, you know this. تحب تكري variable, you don't need to specify type for it. تقدر دير برك you declare it ومن بعد you define it بعد declare it. المهم you create a variable و assign it a value. It works. It always works. تقدر you change a value from a string to a number to to anything you want, array, etc. And it will always continue to work. So all of this is for TypeScript. بعد ESLint بعد ESLint config next. So what is ESLint config next? I was talking about كيفاش إذا حبيت أنت تدير rules that you follow في الكود تاعك وين par exemple you always write point virgule اللي هي حاجة تقدر تقول جمالية that you get used to. خطرات it saves you from some bugs. مي حاجة جمالية في جافا سكريبت you need to define a rule for it. تسمى واش داروا الناس they wrote all the necessary ولا all the best rules زعما باش تكتب clean code وكرياو rules for them ومن بعد جمعوهم مع بعض وكرياو packages اللي تقدر تنستاليهم ويمدوا لك هذو الرول sets. تسمى if you want to follow the best practices of the Next.js community you install this package or you install ESLint باش ينفورسي هذا الباكج ينفورسي هذو الرولز بعدين you install ESLint config next اللي يمد لك الكونفيجريشن تاع Next.js community اللي زعما تتفقوا عليها. You can find out more about it يعني if you Google it. Yeah. Okay, so we were in package.json. Next config, right now it's empty. I think it will continue to be throughout this session. It allows you to configure some certain things about, let's call it the Next.js engine, right? So in case you want to define the way that it sometimes compiles certain things, the way that it builds, parce que من بعد it builds the packages باش تقدر deployهم. What does build mean? We don't care. المهم it builds. It gets your application ready to be deployed. تقدر تبدل behavior تاع هذيك final result using Next.js config. You never have to worry about this unless you are told to. So it's not your job to worry about this for now. So basically, especially as someone who is, let's say, a junior Next.js developer. This next envdt declaration, it's a declaration file for TypeScript. It works, I guess, with Next.js. We don't care. Git ignore. This is related to Git. We don't need to explain it. ESLint. Now you define the rules for ESLint. Also, let's skip it. Now we enter the SRC directory, هذه ال SRC that we created. Inside it came another directory ولا folder. This directory contains your app, right? So here, in order to understand which is an app directory, I think the best way we can do is to go to the documentation. Because it gives us some really good visuals. Let's minimize this. grab this window and make it big. Hopefully I'm still, yes, good, I'm still streaming properly. Okay, how do I close this? Can I close this? I can't. Okay, now we want to focus هنا في هذا الإيمج. We have our app directory كما في البروجكت تاعنا. Inside it, what we have دوكا في البروجيكت تاعنا هي a page. Right? Let's go back to our project. We will jump between them like that. Hopefully you don't get dizzy. The things that we don't care about هي هذه الفافيكون. We don't care. CSS is CSS. It's boring. The page CSS also boring. Module هذه we will explain what it means. So we have layout, we have page. Layout and page. Remember these two. When we go to documentation again, where did it go? It went here. Yeah, for in our documentation, we don't have layout, but we have a page. So البيج راهي هنايا تتعاود inside each directory. يعني هذا الاب تاعهم app directory ولا app folder. I like to call it directory sometimes. The app directory has other directories inside it. Next.js uses a special kind of routing called file routing. I think this is what it's officially called. وش هو file routing؟ هي each file is a separate route. ياك Next.js uses a special version with a special variation of هذا file routing when every directory كيما هكذا defines a route. كيما دوكا رانا في الاب directory هذه هي الروت directory تسمى slash هي هذه الاب right app directory هي slash. So if you find a page inside the directory اللي هي الروت directory تاعنا this page should exist في الروت يعني في السلاش واسمه هذه هي الباجة اللي تكزيستي في السلاش right. So if we go one step deeper slash dashboard we have a directory هنا inside the app directory called dashboard. الراوت تاعها راح يكون slash dashboard. So this page اللي راهي داخل dashboard directory page.jsx هي ال page that you will find if you go to that you will get if you go to this URL slash dashboard. بعدها we get deeper etc. تسمى settings directory is inside the dashboard تسمى slash dashboard slash settings كاين هذه ال page.js. Zaki brought up a good point. Yeah, we can't have two page.js within the same directory. Yeah, it wouldn't make sense to have two pages for the same path. Next.js doesn't allow it. If you create another one, I think you're going to get an error where it will be automatically deleted. I'm not sure. It's not allowed basically. You can't do it. So you can only have one page parce que that's the هذيك هي الباجة اللي تكزيستي ثما. Mais special thing about هذا variation الفيرجن اللي يخدموا بها Next.js is that for utility you can have other files. For example هما راهوش راهم دايرين في our project ال CSS تاعنا lives inside this واسمو lives inside هذيك directory. One second. Okay. CSS تاعنا lives inside هذا الاب directory وما يأثرش على الفونكسيونمون تاع our application. It works normally. We can also have other components. For example, we can call it side menu.js ولا button.js. It doesn't matter. The only reserved keyword soi-disant is page.js the other one اللي هي layout.js. كاين some other reserved يعني words اللي ما تقدرش تخدم بيهم في التايتل تاع your file. We'll get to them when we get to them. For now على بالنا بلي page.js تمد لنا الباجة تاع هذيك الدايركتوري. What about layout.js then? layout هي something it's a component اللي يحيط بالبيج تاعنا. Right? So when we have for example هنايا we have this layout بار اكزومبل ليتس سي باللي عندنا توب نافيجيشن كيما هذا التوب نافيجيشن تاع هذا السيت تاعهم نيكست جي اس في هذا المنيو هذا السيرش بار ايتترا هذايا يكزيستي يكزيستي اون اول بيجز تاع هذا السيت ويب تاعهم رايت. So they what you can do as a developer you can ما يمدولكش layouts يعني if we continue working with just pages you would have to inside each page JS you will have to call هذيك الكومبوننت تاع ال top navigation. So to simplify هذا process we can create ولا Next.js team created another concept اللي هو layout.js. Layout.js allows you to specify هذوما الحوايج كيما top navigation, bottom footer اللي you want to exist inside all pages اللي downstream. وش معناها downstream؟ معناتها let's say باللي دوكا رانا في الباجة تاع documentation right. So I need to go exit full screen. For Next.js الراوت اللي رانا فيه Next.js ويب سايت تاعهم is built with Next.js تسمى it applies here. عندنا slash docs. Slash docs عندها a special kind of top navigation right. تسمى if we go inside the app directory inside the docs directory وثم نكريو layout it will apply it for every page that is part of the docs path. تسمى any page اللي ندخل فيها هنا it will have هذه top navigation right. I don't know if that's understandable. It's explained by this picture. دوكا oh, my screen's frozen. All right, let me fix it again. I don't know why it happens actually. It would be nice to know to have it never happen again. Okay. Now we're back. Have it would be explained well with a diagram, but let's make do with this. اللي هي when we have a layout هنايا every page اللي جاية inside هذيك الدايركتوري البارنت دايركتوري تسمى all children تاع هذيك البارنت دايركتوري will have هذيك layout it will be displayed يعني it will be present. So a question you might have is can we have multiple layouts? You can't have them inside the same directory but you can have for example slash docs has a layout بعد slash docs slash app كيما هنايا عندهم يكون عندها its own layout. زعما نقولوا باللي slash app تمد لنا هذه السايد بار slash docs تمد لنا هذا اللاyout اللي هي top navigation والسلاش navigation والسلاش app يمد لنا هذا السايد بار. تسمى if we go to slash docs bar we would lose هذا السايد navigation but keep this one اللي هي top navigation. اس بي يقدر يتبدل layout الكونتنت تاع layout. layout acts is ماشي acts. layout itself هي ثاني React component so it behaves the same way a React component would. You can make you can basically use data inside it. You can do any kind of thing that you can do inside a React component with it. حاجة سبيسيال فيها برك هي باللي it's الطريقة اللي it is rendered في all pages اللي جايين its children basically زعما هكذا. Okay, now we continue with the project structure. عندنا البيج عندنا البيج we understood باللي البيج هي الحاجة اللي نشوفوها ثم في هذا الدايركتوري اللي رانا فيها واللاي اوت هي الحاجة اللي نشوفوها في الدايركتوري اللي رانا فيها وكامل children تاع هذيك الدايركتوري. Okay. So when we go to حاجة اللي بقات لنا هي public هذه public are just files for your application. تسمى things like files معناتها media يعني شغل pictures PDFs icons fonts for example you can put it inside the public directory which will be made public basically it will be accessible. Okay, so uh, knowing that, let's clean up things. Well, actually, let's first thing that we do, let's run our app pnpm run dev. فهي ديجا 11 ونص, so I'm going to accelerate a bit. It told me that my application is hosted in localhost 3001. If we go to 3001 localhost 3001, we will find باللي رانا خادمين ديجا. It's taking some its time. It's compiling. Okay, compile. What does it mean? I don't know. Did it finish? Yes, it did. Okay, so now I see templates تاع default اللي يمدوها لك زعما كي تكري a new Next.js project. And I don't care for this template. I want to start from scratch. How do I start from scratch? By deleting everything. ولا ماشي everything actually. I will keep هذا الزوج. I will keep a layout والpage.module.css. Why I will keep a layout and I don't need it personally, but Next.js needs it. وعلاش؟ باسكو فيها اللي you define important things كيما التايتل تاع البيج تاعك. باسكو if you think about it ما لقيناش بلاصه وين اللي هي index.html. نورمالمون كاينه في React index.html where you define things like your metadata كيما التايتل description or some other things that you can also define. Next.js gives it to you في الروت layout اللي جايه في الاب directory, right? تسمى it defines ال HTML tag اللي تحيط بكلش, وبعد ال body tag اللي inside it lives everything. Okay, since we are no longer using since we are no longer caring about the content تاعهم, I can delete everything that was inside. I will replace it with main, an empty main. Let's put an h1 in it. Hello again. Okay, delete this and this because they no longer exist, and go back to our page. I have a problem. I am importing something, and now the CSS file no longer exists, so I deleted it. All right, so hello again. Okay, now I go to my page, and I see I can now begin working on whatever I want. In my case, عندي some specific needs. Now, I need you all to understand, تبدلوا النظرة تاعكم from a React, شغل التخمام تاع React اللي يقول باللي everything I write here ولا I write in my components will run on the browser. وش معناها will run on the browser? Lives in the browser instead of runs on the browser. It lives in the browser. معناها all the code that I write راهو يتبعث للبراوزر, من بعد البراوزر will run it. So if I do console.log, this hello world will be displayed في البراوزر, right? With Next.js that's not the case. وعلاش؟ باسكو with Next.js the default is that everything runs on the server. That's why Next.js is a server-side browser, server-side framework, full stack framework, right? It is server first. It prioritizes everything runs on the server. Things run on the client side. When we say things, we mean JavaScript. JavaScript code runs on the client side only when absolutely necessary. So this is how they want you to think. So change your thinking. Everything runs on the browser. دوكا راني نكتب في Node.js code ولا راني نكتب في backend code. What does that mean? معناتها if I do something like console.log, for example, if I go here to my browser, where I would usually find hello world هنايا extra attributes. I don't know why what this thing is, doesn't matter. Probably I have many extensions installed. It might not exist for you. Anyway, we don't care about it. الهالو وورلد تاعي هنايا ما كاش هالو وورلد. Why? باسكو it runs on the browser. تسمى it will only run ولا it will only show هنايا في my browser when someone visits the page. This is so now we're touching on subject as server-side rendering. Let's do an experiment first. I will refresh this page. It is got refreshed. Well, it's not showing anything باسكو محيت كلش. I'm still not getting any console log. مي هنايا I got my console log hello world. It ran on the browser when someone accessed my page. This is a very special thing. تسمى واش راهو يدير Next.js behind the scenes واش راهو يدير هو راهو يفوت على هذا الكومبوننت ولا هذه الفانكشن باسكو what is a component it's just JavaScript code that returns HTML ولا it returns bon more React code ولا more React components mais enfin it's HTML code right main div etc. This code اللي هو this code هنايا this JavaScript code will run on the in the browser on the browser. السيرفر تاعنا will run it for the client when he asks for a page ومن بعد يدير whatever calculations need to be done for example he will return result to the client. So what he will return هي ال HTML that is ready, CSS that is ready, و JavaScript that is needed for example انك you click a button or something like that. Okay, so let's try it out actually. How can we try it out? I don't know. Let's do something like calculation اللي هي 2 plus 2. ثم هنا this is React code, normal React code, which hopefully you know by now. هذه الكالكوليشن bon it returned 4 مي هذه الكالكوليشن صارت في الباك اند مع a simple calculation it's nothing special مي imagine it right now باللي وهذه الكالكوليشن نرمبلاسيوها with instead you are coming up with the feed that you're going to show your customers ولا the post that you're going to show your customers. Now you might have concluded باللي since we're running this code في البراوزر في السيرفر معناها الكلاينت doesn't have access to it معناتها it's secure. What does it mean it's secure? السيرفر تاعي is secure. الكلاينت براوزر ماهوش secure. وعلاش؟ باسكو انا if I'm a hacker I can access pretty much everything اللي exists within my browser using كشما يعني tooling whatever. I'm not really a hacker. Even someone like me probably could with some googling etc. So if I were to put something like الكيز تاع access to my database في نبعثهم للبراوزر للكلاينت I would get hacked. My database would be wiped, ولا they would steal it, etc. صح, if it is on the browser, it is on the server, I can easily do that. تسمى what it tells me here في هذا الكود inside React, I don't just do a server a database query. With Next.js, I can do this. So I can just do like this, const let's create ما عنديش actually database setup. So what can I do? Maybe would time allow it? I think this point is important. So let's look for an API route real quickly. API route schema, dummy API route. I should have had one ready. Okay, dummy sample REST API example. This one seems good. Let's look at this one. It should be dummy slash employee. Okay. هوس على الروت URL. We're selling this domain. Okay, I don't this هذا نعقدوها. I need something simpler. Dummy JSON. Dummy JSON. I need this product. Boom, boom. Let's try making this request هنا قبل. Okay, now we know باللي رجعت لنا JSON. تسمى هذا الكود we can نلعبوا يعني we pretend باللي it's a call to our own database instead of someone else's API. كاين فرق بين API و database of course. More or less it's the same. You're making a request that is asynchronous that will take time that you need an API key for parce que most APIs من غير هادو تاع testing they are secure. You need an API key for them. So accessing either is a security risk if you do it from client side. So let's do something like data fetch await. Yes, await fetch. Not this. I will put my route instead. Oops. Hoppa. I just need the URL here. In order to use await, I should add async. Okay, data. Let's console log it. We need to remember also باللي get address info error not found. Parce que I used API example. I should use this URL instead. I thought I changed it. Okay, okay. It's making the request properly. I think I am getting it. So what's next? Is I turn it into JSON parce que right now it's not. It's in a format actual well, calc I can just remove it for now. How Spark نشوف my data, my beautiful data being displayed. هذا الداتا اللي هي حيبعثها لنا API. Go again, it's not await. Is this promise? It's a promise. Okay, await again. Okay, it worked. As you can see, here is our data اللي we got from an API. هذا الcall was done on the backend. If you think about the possibilities that this unlocks, it's pretty huge. You can now it simplifies so much for you. معناتها instead of having a backend, well, for a start, instead of having a backend, you can skip the backend to go directly to a database. تسمى instead of creating هذا البروكسي اللي الهدف تاعو برك انه يسمع الكول اللي في الفرونت اند وبعدين يتراوت يقول للداتابيس يعطيني هذا الداتا ومن بعد يعاود يرجعها. تسمى it's useless code basically باسكو it just sits in the middle باسكو الكلاينت تاعنا ما يقدرش يدير requests. Now remove it completely, do requests directly, do calculations directly. نقدر par exemple دوكا rating تاعي ولا no ماشي stock. Let's do something like this. نحوس نكتب my data right now وعلى بالي باللي فيها data title. So what I will do هي I'll do data.title h2 ولا p اللي هي data.description description. Now this error is because of TypeScript. I want you to ignore it for a second. So don't look at what I did here because I didn't explain it. No, it's probably obvious شوية. Okay, عندي هذه بعد I will do something اللي شغل زعما حنلعبها باللي يعني حندير complex calculation اللي هي I'm going to do inventory price. Let's call it that. وش هي inventory price؟ هي الستوك اللي عندي تسمى data.price. البرايس تاع each item نضربها في العدد تاع الستوك ولا عدد الايتمز اللي عندي. You can imagine this calculation being more complex for example your application. You can do as complex as you want. So inventory price, we put it here. Let's try now. Oops. Well, of course it doesn't work. Okay, what do you want? I'm not doing JSON again. I need to put another await. ولا actually هنا ugly data. But the real data is the one that I do await data ugly data.json باش نحولها to something that JavaScript can read. Now it's working, right? So here we go. iPhone iPhone model كذا واني نشوف stock value تاعي اللي هي 51,000 دولار. So this is on its own amazing. Explains kind of how server-side rendering works. Server-side rendering means باللي السيرفر تاعك it contains الكود اللي تحتاجه. السيرفر تاعك هو اللي يدير any intermediate steps كيما أنه يجيب data يدير calculations و it only returns ال HTML اللي يكون ready باش to be displayed to the client. الكلاينت ما يسحق يدير حتى خدمة. Yeah, it doesn't need to do anything. He just تلحقوا HTML ready. It just he displays it. Okay. Okay, let's go back to our main application that we were trying to make. Now, I already worked on it behind the scenes, let's say. I will go find it. Uh, well, here, I'm not sure whether, I feel you guys are familiar with React enough. Uh, to- so I will fast forward, just give you a refresher maybe on React as I go, or start creating an application. So the first thing that I need to create, if you look at هذيك الاب تاعنا, it lives in localhost 3000 for me, is I need to create هذا display تاع information. Nothing complex. We all have done this في HTML و CSS ولا even in React countless times. So I'm just going to create هنا a div اللي تكون تيني هذاك where I will be putting first of all الimage تاعي. و we'll get to talking about hooks in a minute. For now, I want you to, well, ماشي for now, not I want you. For now, we should realize باللي since هذا الكود lives on the server, sûrement كاين واحد limitations اللي راهم عندنا. For example, if I try to access the window property, this is very important, right? باسكو نقولوا باللي راني حاب نعرف الويدث تاع السكرين تاع اليوزر تاعي. في normal React ولا normal JavaScript, I would access window dot, for example, inner width, inner height, inner width. Right? So if I were to console log this, console.log, I'm console logging this. It will give me an error because window is not defined. Where isn't it defined? It's not defined on the server. Window doesn't exist on the server, it exists on the client. Since this code is running on the server, it won't work. For React hooks are also concepts that are designed to run on the client, right? They're designed to run on the client. You can create React hooks, I think that you can create hooks that work on the server. May the default ones like use state, they use they're designed to work on the client. عليها they don't work on the server. Swap because of Next.js, swap because they use properties that don't work on the server. Anyway, so let's move on. Now, كما قال Majid, they only work on the client side. In Next.js, you can tell a component, باللي, hey, you're going to run on the client side. Actually, I don't want you to run any backend code. We will be doing that a bit later. So for now, I will do the boring stuff. I will skip forward, well, actually fast forward the boring stuff by just copy pasting. Save everyone some time, parce que everyone here knows JavaScript, knows well, at least how to build stuff in HTML, CSS. So here we have our first code اللي حيمد لي الآخر. I'm getting some errors about styles. I am going to define styles هنايا. Special thing about Next.js is ماشي غير Next.js. This is something basic actually. You can use even in React. هي هذا الكونسيبت تاع modules. If I call this page.module.css, if I do this naming convention اللي هي .module.css, it gives me a special CSS file اللي limitي برك to the components that import it. If I were to define styles هنايا في هذه الآخر, they won't be applied anywhere else باسكو I am calling them like a variable هنا, you know, هذه الفاريبل فيها الإيمج class ثم I have to access it directly. So if I were to name another component, هذه الإيمج, if I were to name another element مدلول class تاع image, it won't get styling that I put inside this page.module.css. This is useful when you have huge applications where naming tab, for example, class اللي هي button, it will occur a lot. So you want to separate هذوك البutton, for example, تاع login من البutton تاع something else. You use هذه modules because it makes it easier for you. Okay, so real quickly also going to copy the page.css الكود تاعو اسمه تاع styling. Okay, here I go. Here it is. ما فهمتش تاع modules. Okay. Normally في HTML, right? So you have an HTML element. You give it a class. I'll explain in a bit. يعني I'll rephrase it باش you understand. Normally for CSS, you name a class like this, so with a string directly. So messy way to close this. With a string directly, you call it, for example, container. دوكا when you go to your CSS file you do styling تاع container like this. Let's do this dot container وهنا تمد له styling. It will be applied on all of your application. تسمى anywhere تغلط خطرة كيش خطرة تغلط وتمد الكلاس نيم تاع container to another div ولا another element, it will also get the style اللي انت you intended only to give it to هذا element ولا هذا element اللي شغل ليميتي. بار اكزومبل عندك button اللي الباك جراوند تاعو كحله, هذا الباتن تاع اللوجين الباك جراوند تاعو كحله, تسميه button, تمد له كلاس نيم تاع button. It's a bad name, it's a bad naming convention. مي you do that من بعد انت تكمل تديفلوبي و you get to الباتن اللي هو post. البوست supposed to have a white background. بصح تمد له نفس الاسم هذا button. تسمى يصراو في big applications conflicts تاع naming, هذا تاع naming تاع الكلاسز. You will be naming many things تمد لهم نفس الكلاس name بينما هما they're supposed to have different styles. CSS modules solve this by considering the CSS file تاعك as an object, as a variable actually. وهذه الفاريبل تكونتيني الكلاسز ولا تكونتيني style definitions, معناها الكلاسز الايديز والكلاسز والايديز it contains them inside it. تسمى imagine دوكا عندك variable فيها styling هكذا const style فيها your button, هنا يكون فيها color red je sais pas background color blue. تسمى in order to use هذا البutton class you need to import هذه style بعد دير style dot button. بصح دوكا رانا نكتبو في جافا سكريبت. Some people thought, hey, it would be great if we can have هذا the same functionality في CSS, so they created هذا الموديول. I think it's preprocessor زعما. For us we don't care what it is. هذا الموديول concept اللي يخلينا we import a CSS file almost like it is a variable ونأكسيديو للكلاسز اللي inside it, classes IDs و basically styling تاعهم. we access them كيما we access an object تسمى styles dot button, styles dot details. كيما دوكا في هذه details this is a class اللي تكزيستي داخل هذا styles variable اللي هي هذه البيج module تاعنا. تما لو كان نروح لهذا السي اس اس فايل تاعنا I can find الكلاس تاع details. Look at it, it's right here. ياك تما it won't be applied anywhere else because it's a variable that I'm importing specifically هنايا. It doesn't get applied to other places. في another CSS file نقدروا نديروا la différence s1.css. Okay. s1.css. Let me just I need to understand the screen problem. Let's fix it again. اوكي اذا كاين another class سموها button في another CSS file نقدروا نديروا لا ديفيرونس s1.css s2.css في زوج عندهم class button. دونك اذا باغي نخدموا بتاع s2 نديروا s2.button pretty much وي s2.button وي باسكو you import it like a variable كيما هكا you import it شغل package ولا bon like a variable هكا بصح in order to get هذه functionality نظن لازم تنستالي something. I think لازم you install some a package usually. It comes pre-installed with Next. You have to name هذاك CSS file في بلاصة ما for example s1.css تسميه s1.module.css وهكذا you can import it like كيما درت نتايا s1 for example import s1 from s1.module.css وتقدر دير import s2 from كذا كذا etc. والستايلز تاعهم they won't conflict ماغري الكلاسز اللي داخلهم عندهم نفس الاسم مي they won't ما حش يصرى بروبليم ما حش يصرى لا. Alright, I'm happy you got it. Okay. So import styles. We have styles. عندنا styling تاعي اللي imported أنا. دوك هذا الbook it's a variable اللي containing my information about my books. Right now, it would be best. For future, we're going to have a database where we will be putting all our books. Me for now, I will create a new file inside my source folder نسميها data. Inside this data, I will create a file اسمه books.typescript. هنايا I will define my books. راح ندير export const books which is an array باسكو I need many books. أنا ديجا راني مكري هذا الاري هنايا in my when I was working on the original code. تسمى I will just copy it. I will introduce you to TypeScript. Right, so as I was saying, TypeScript allows us to give typing functionality to JavaScript. JavaScript doesn't have types. So when you write something like let number equal string, it works. But TypeScript allows you to not do that basically. How do you do that? By using this special syntax اللي هي دير two points هنايا وهنا تكتب التايب تاع هذا ال variable that you are declaring من بعد ما يخليكش ما يخليكش basically تبدل التايب تاع هذيك ال variable unless you specifically tell it باللي hey I want to change it from number to string. وش معناها this removes all the errors. For example زعما عندك zero اللي هي number و0 اللي هي string. Next.js helps solve هذا البروبلم تاع خطرات you run into bugs because of these misunderstandings اللي very stupid و that don't make sense. تسمى هنايا عندي زعما SDF هنا it's a string. لو كان I tell it باللي I want to set a number it will give me an error. Number is declared but it's variable باش ما نخلطوش روحنا ماشي vary vary is declared, but its value is never read. No, it's not our error. Type string is not assignable to type number. تسمى the value هذه is a string, but it can't be assigned to a number. So I do this. This normally, naturally, it can be applied also with objects. Objects هما complex objects في JavaScript are actually more complex data types اللي هما data type اللي include other variables inside it. You can think of it like that. So the way you describe a type for it, here you declare زعما You can either do type for example book. هنا عندي type book وبعدين I describe كيفاش داير صح. wait, let's do that actually. type تاع book عندي فيه كيما رانا نشوفوا حاجة اللي راهي تعاود 4 values. title, author, review, image, all of them are type string. So since I am declaring a type, I will write هذوك الvalues اللي normal book تاعي has. I will write type اللي that they should take. تسمى I have title inside my book object و it should be of type string. I can do this, well, I will do this with all the others. String review, string review image. All of these are supposed to be strings. So right now you can, if I tell JavaScript or TypeScript, I want this to be of type book. صح. Well, book is an object أنا عندي array of objects, so I just do this. I create شغل هذا syntax which says I want an array of this thing. It also works with primitives with things like string. So نقدر نقول له I want an array of strings. هنا I want an array of this object of this book object. It works. Look, if I remove, for example, one of these, I'm going to get an error هنا تقول لي بلي this one is missing a value. Property author is missing. So this is very helpful for debugging, for removing الآخرين. Even if I add some new value like this, ESDF, whatever, it tells me بلي this object may only specify known properties. تسمى هذه does not exist in the type that you have given me. It doesn't exist. تسمى سواء نقول له there is a certain way باش نقول له بلي allow it. نقدر نزيدها هنا. نقدر there are other options. We don't care for now. So I have my books. They are exported. I will also export my type because I will use it elsewhere. I go back to my books, my page. هنا I will do const book. البوك تاعي هي just I get الاري تاع البوكس و I just get let's get an third one, let's say, ولا first one. First one. Okay, now I'm no longer getting an error. Let's see what I am getting here. Okay, nothing is giving me an error, so it should run. Module can't resolve. بدلت الاسم تاع CSS file. It should instead be style page.module.css. Okay, now I'm getting another error. This is good because it's a new error. Expression expected. Where when expression expected. Probably نسيت كلمة فاصلة or something like that. Let me check. هنا مع الآخر كامل. I need to remove this extra one. Good. Okay. A new error again. So that's good. Invalid SRC prop. كذا كذا كذا. Okay. راهو يقول لي this very complex error. Why is that? There is a very special reason for it. اللي هي Next.js. When we talked in the slides, we said بلي Next.js عنده some optimizations. Should we go back to the slides? Too much time. عنده يدير واحد optimizations to images, to videos, to documents, etc. يعني fonts. It optimizes them باش it gives the user only الفيرجن اللي يحتاجه هو in terms يعني شحال الكبر تاع هذيك التصويره. هذه it saves on data. For example انت عندك تصويره 4K بصح اليوزر تاعك is connecting through laptop اللي شغل 720p ولا 480p. Usually يعني with a normal framework it would give him that 4K image اللي capable تكون 20 megabytes or something like that. Mais Next.js, what it does, it intelligently knows بلي okay this person needs a version different. ثم هو يكري versions for a bunch of different dimensions. It gives him the proper one. هذه one of the things that it does to just to be able to optimize, become more performant. But in order to do that لازم يعرف من وين راهو يجيب الايمجز تاعو. باسكو he needs to get them in advance. ومن بعدها make copies that are smaller, that are more compact, right? So I just need to read the error. Invalid SRC prop. وعلاش it's invalid؟ باسكو the host name هذا is not configured under images in your next.config.js. So if I go to images in my config, actually I can see more info. That's always good. Here in more info, they tell me باللي under images كاين هذا الobject. And I'm going to do the normal intelligent developer action of just copying it ونروح للكود تاعي و I just paste it. ما نسحقش نفهم. قالوا لي next.config I put it here. حاجة اللي نرمبلاسيها هنا الهوست نيم right. If I look at my books عندهم هذا الهوست نيم اللي هو hips.cla hard stab باسكو انا جبتهم من الانترنت هاد الايمجز. I didn't download them. باسكو it's faster for development basically. That's the only reason. I should develop them. لو كان يعني I release this application I will definitely download them ونحطهم في my own server. Me for now I will do this. هذا البارتي ثاني يتعاود هذا الباث نيم سينو عليها راني نديرو يتعاود في كامل واسمهم الايمجز. اوكي I followed وش قالوا لي documentation. So it should work, right? It's now compiling will actually تكري هذوك الكوبيز تاع الايمجز اللي راهي مخبيتهم عليا. It shows my image. Perfect. Perfect. Very good. Very good. بصح actual background ماهيش تبين بيضاء راهو كاين text مي وعلاش باسكو I am missing some styling for the root هذا page .css هذا المين. It needs to have a different نحي هذه الكلاس name old one كي كنا نسبليكيو. This one needs to have a different name style styles.main. Okay, أنا styling تاعها I have it already, so I am just going to copy it. Page.module. I go to the top and copy it, paste it. Okay, this is better, much better. Why? It's better. But it's still ugly. Why is that? Bon, الحاجة الأولى هذا الاسباس اللي جاي فوقه it's resolved by resetting CSS. ايش معناها resetting؟ هي removing هذاك ال CSS اللي by default البراوزر يحطه في واسمه تاعي. تسمى I want to create a index.css هذا فيه I don't need to do modules باسكو I want it applied everywhere. هذا it just removes some things اللي ما نحتاجهمش كيما هذا ال box sizing basically كوبيته كوبيته من الانترنت. margin أهم حاجة يدير لي zero. I need to import it in all pages. So what I will do هي نروح للroot layout like I said باللي root layout ولا layout it applies for all children. تسمى if I go to the root layout it applies on all pages في الابليكيشن تاعي. هنا I just need to import my index.css for one I will get rid of هذا white space right. Let's see. Can't resolve. I need to do dot slash. Yeah. Okay. It's readable. It's still not the way I like it. It's readable. How do I get it to where I want it? Well, first of all, since we're working with React عنده components. أنا هذه الكومبوننتس تاع الإيمج ديسبلاي ولا الانفورميشن ديسبلاي تاعي. Bon, it's هذه let's go back actually باسكو قبل ما نديرو anything نحوس نحل هذا المشكل تاع it's all هابط هكذا. تسمى I am going to give styling لهذا اللي اسمه هذا تك container. Let's call it container. هنا نجي book container ديجا راني مسميها. هذا ال CSS اللي كنت نخدم عليه in the background. I'm not covering CSS باسكو it would take a lot of time. هذه هي المين reason. مي CSS هذا it's not anything special. I'm just using display flex, gap, background colors, paddings, etc. باش I achieve هذا الآخر. كل واحد فينا كيفاش يكتب CSS تاعو تسمى we can reach هذا البوينت اللي ولا هذا الاوتكم using different methods. يعني it's not difficult, it shouldn't be difficult for you to شغل style this to become like this ولا to become any other format, right? Uh, so I give it this styling and it gives me this. Okay. البروبلم تاعي هي هذا البيج تاعي is static, right? It is static. وش معناها static? We mentioned this also yesterday. Static معناتها if I give you هذا اللينك if I give you هذا اللينك يعني I host this و I give you the link, you will also get to kill a mockingbird هذا. ديجا أنا every time I'm refreshing I'm getting this to kill a mockingbird. أنا نحوس something exciting. I want some dynamic content. سيبو كرهت من هذا to kill a mockingbird. It's قريته سيبو قريته 20 خطرة. So the way I would do that في application اللي تكون client side rendered. The way well, client side rendered for example React is the way you would do it هي first of all تبعث الكومبوننت فارغ لليوزر. فارغ وش معناتها؟ you don't render anything in advance باسكو ما على بالكش وش من book you will render. بعد معناها تبعث له غير الجافا سكريبت اللي يدير ريكوست للباك اند. هذيك الريكوست تاع الباك اند ثم يجيب كشما يجيب له البوك that he is supposed to see using some kind of special logic. For example يريكوموندي له شغل some book that he eat that are part of his preferences. شغل يحب classic books, it will choose a classic book at random for example. The algorithm we don't care about for now. We will build it actually, at least in this application that I'm building. Each one will probably build a separate one, a different one, using the skills that we're learning here. We're going to be making different ones. So our backend server is going to be making a decision about which book he will see وبعدين يبعثها للكلاينت سايد again. الكلاينت تاعنا هو اللي يرندري الرياكت في الكلاينت سايد يرندري هذاك واسمه وش معناها يرندريها معناها يحطها في الستيت تاعو ويوريها لليوزر. بصح since things happen في السيرفر for Next.js they don't happen في الكلاينت. معناها we can make هذاك اللوجيك اللي يخلينا we choose a book at random. The way I do this هي عندي أنا دوكا a bunch of books maybe 5 ولا 10 I think something like 10. نحوس I choose one at random. This is dynamic for me. I just choose one at random و this randomness تكون different for every visit. تسمى get ولا generate random number in range for example. In generate random number in range. Generate random number in range. المدلو minimum و maximum. بعدها what I wanted to do هي return math.floor. هذا هو اللوجيك تاعي. So this just you can probably well I know what I did. I have GitHub Copilot. So he suggests pretty much well for things like this it suggests code اللي يفيكسي لي problem without me having to memorize هذا الآخر هذا الكود or Google it. Right. So what it does هنا obviously يمد لي number in this range. لو كان نقول له number من 1 ل 10 راح يمد لي number random each time from 1 to 10. تسمى الbook that I am choosing instead of hard coding it to be 0 I'm going to generate a book from 0 to number of books اللي عندي. تسمى من 0 ل 10 عندي 10 books من 0 ل 10. تسمى كل خطرة I'm going to get a random book every time I refresh. And it's working. To Kill a Mockingbird, The Handmaid's Tale, perfect, right? Nice. May I think we can do it one step better. وعلاش؟ باسكو the whole point اللي we made React for هي we want to get rid of هاد هذا اللوجيك اللي ماشي لوجيك، هذه الحاجة تاع the need to always ask for new pages from the server. تسمى كي راني ندير ريفرش هنايا I'm not just getting the data for this book, I'm getting data for this whole page again and again. I'm loading it again and again and again. تسمى إذا كان دوكا it's a small page مي imagine it's a huge page اللي فيها بزاف stuff. وأنا النيو داتا اللي راني نحوس عليها غير هذه تاع البوك. It would be a waste. Luckily, if instead of refreshing on my own using الفانكشناليتي تاع البراوزر نخلي Next.js يرفرشي on my behalf, this way it will intelligently know باللي okay, it will compare the old version تاعي with the new version اللي it's getting from the server, وفي بلاصة ما يرومبلاسي كامل الباجا بالنيو بيج راح يشوف برك الديفيرونس بيناتهم ويرومبلاسي الحوايج اللي تبدلوا. هكذا البراوزر تاعي doesn't need to spend time rendering everything. وش معناها rendering everything؟ معناها تنحي كلش، كامل ال elements that are on screen HTML elements بعدها تديرهم كامل من the ones that it got from واسمه from the server. احنا we just want to update this text to this image. Well, that's what it will do. Well, what we want it to do. It can do that. Now, what we're looking for is navigation. But in order to do navigation, the thing that we think about here, link component. A link component, this one, is a special component. href نحوسها تروح هنا. Refresh, I will call it will get new books. Get new books. New book. If I click it, nothing is happening. Why? Parce que to it دوكا هذه شوية معقدة. We don't need to go into it. بالنسبة بالنسبة ل Next.js راهو يشوف فينا باللي رانا نروحوا لنفس السلاش، رانا ديجا في سلاش يعني الروت دايركتوري، ورانا حابين نروحوا للروت باث اجين. تسمى يصوتي شغل it intelligently knows باللي رانا ديجا في هذيك الباجات، تسمى I'm not going to do anything. حنا we want to get it to do something intelligently. تسمى we are going to use a hook. This is the first time that we use a hook. الhook that we are going to use هي الراوتر hook. we use it by using هذا الهوك اللي هو use router. use router lives ماشي في next/router. هذه if you try to use this router you're going to get an image. that's you have that imports. يقول لك باللي you have a component that uses next/router. use next/navigation instead. يحاول تكتب navigation. Why? We don't need to know. We don't care. We just go and use /navigation. Everything else should be the same. May we get another error? Use router only works in client components. Add the use client directive at the top of the file to use it. Okay. It wants us to use it knows like we said before كما سقسا زكي I think. What about React hooks? React hooks don't work on the server. Just like how window.width or actual window object does not exist on the server. So what we have to do here, tell Next.js intelligently, Billy, listen, for this piece of code, I need you to run it on the server, on the client. So it told us how we do that. Use client, نحطوها directive, نديروها at the top of the file. Right? وش معناها directive؟ معناها piece of code at the top of the file. قصدو هنا نطلعو كامل line 1 ونكتبو use client. Okay, we get an error. Wait, boom boom. She error. This is a warning. Prevent client components from being async functions. This is a warning because we have this async function. mais we should be getting an even bigger warning باسكو هذا الكود اللي كتبناه مقبل I will remove this bug باش تكون readable. هذا الكود اللي كتبناه مقبل تاع getting a book حنا دوكا البوكس تاعنا live in the browser on the server right. تسمى عندنا شغل باز دوني اللي هي just type جافا سكريبت object. هذه هي الباز دوني تاعنا. it run ولا it exists on the browser uh, in the server ماشي browser. We are not we are just returning one book every time to the client. uh, if we run this whole component with all of this page for client, we will, in this case, it will start to work. Mais if we are going to do, for example, uh, console log تاع books, console.log تاع books, ونديرو هنا نشوفو باللي our server ولا our browser. let me refresh نشوفو باللي الكلاينت تاعنا البراوزر تاعنا is receiving all the books اللي عندنا. تسمى that's crazy. imagine دوكا عندنا غير 10 books. imagine we had tens of thousands of books. راح نبعثوهم كامل. No, John. Obviously we're doing something wrong. The thing that we're doing wrong here, we're going against the philosophy تاع Next.js. Philosophy تاع Next.js says باللي everything should run on the server unless absolutely necessary. When absolutely necessary, only the thing that needs to run on the client should run on the client. وش هي الحاجة اللي needs to run on the client؟ هي هذه اليوز راوتر. تسمى what I am going to do هي نكري a new component نسميها navigation .tsx. it's just a component. كما عرفنا باللي anything اللي ماهوش مسمينه page ولا layout can exist normally في الدايركتوري تاعنا. it won't show up زعما في البراوزر تاعي يعني it will work normally. هنا I want this code to run on the client, use client. Then I want to do it like this. Import ماشي link. What am I doing? I need a component نسميه navigate. I نسميه navigate. That's a cool name. Navigate. For now I will return nothing and return just a div. With a button, let's call it button. We call it get new book. We export this, export default, navigate. We import it هنايا using شغل the fact أنه this is the philosophy تاع React ثاني using component شغل crafting components اللي can be used can be reused. تسمى ديجا هذا الكومبوننت تاعو اسمه book container. We should since why should it live like this in this ugly form في الروت page تاعنا. We should instead do something like this. Well, I can do something even more beautiful. نكري a separate components directory نحط فيها another directory, let's say, for my book info component. نحط فيها book info.tsx. نجيب const book info bam 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 bam. وبعدها I return this code. This code doesn't need to live here. I will take it away ونحطه هنايا in prison. ونحتاجو البوك وستايل. book we were going to do this. We will pass it as a prop. Props are just ways to pass data from a parent component to a child component. So we are passing it from the parent اللي هو ال page باسكو that's where it is needed. ولا نقدروا نكسيديوها ديريكتومون هنا actually. So maybe we don't need to do this. We can instead have هذا الكود since it's the only thing يعني only component that needs it. نرفدو كامل هذا الكود. boom intelligently نحطوه هنا. boom. So now import. It's much cleaner. We just need styles. I will create it like this. دوكا الفايل هذاك ماهوش اكزيستي تاع book info. It's froze again. Yep. Okay. Okay, nice. All right, that should be working, right? Okay, book info. This is just busy work basically. It's just to showcase really inside Next.js you can still use or should use principles principles philosophy تاع React تاع building good React applications. And now we want to move everything from styling تاعو اسمه اللي يبدأ من هنا ويخلص هنا. We move it into my no, this one, no. This one, no. What did I call it? Book info module CSS. No. Ouais. Donc, في البيج تاعي, let's remove. Yeah, في البيج تاعي, root page, I will instead call book info. I need to export it first. Export default book info. And I'm going to import it now, book info. Ta-da! Still working properly. Okay. Now, عندي هذا navigate. Let's clean up this. And the navigate router تاعي هذا needs to live inside this client component. وclient component معناتها a component that runs only on the client. So here it runs on the client, so I will give it this use router. Using the router, which I import from next/navigation, I want to do something special now. I want to do a Next.js refresh, ماشي a browser refresh. So I will call it Next.js refresh, which I will do by, actually it's just a function, it calls router dot refresh. هكذا Next.js, the code itself, the framework itself, refreshes instead of my ugly, مش ugly, my browser, which does it in a stupid way, let's say. It's a primitive way. Next.js refresh. So does this work now?